Welcome to Web3 Watchdogs, the podcast that takes a deep dive into the world of Web3 security, compliance, and risk. Join Michael Pearl as he interviews executives from across the Web3 industry to uncover the challenges and opportunities of this rapidly evolving space. Web3 Watchdogs is sponsored by CyVers, your one-stop shop for Web3 security and threat mitigation. CyVers harnesses the power of AI to eliminate hacks, scams, fraud, and compliance challenges in real time, and even before they happen. For more information, visit cyvers.ai. That's CYVERS.ai.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Web3 Watchdogs podcast, powered by CyVers. And today we have Alexandre Horvath. Alexander is the Group Chief Information Security Officer and Data Protection Officer for Cryptix Group. What is Cryptix? Cryptix is a Web3 venture building house and an end-to-end service provider for Web3 and blockchain. Alexander has over 20 years of experience in multinational organizations on a global level. He is also the chairman of the supervisory board of eSync Network, a layer 1 blockchain. So, Alexander, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Michael.
So, I'm really excited to have you here. You have such a diverse experience. And perhaps tell us a little bit about yourself beyond what I just mentioned, your background, your professional background, the projects that you're currently working on.
Sure. Well, thanks for the introduction. If I can add a couple of things. Obviously, as you already said, a couple of years in cybersecurity. I worked, I guess, in several different also kind of job descriptions. Started in the IT audit, made my way also as a consultant. And then obviously I was also CISO for several other companies, which I think is also good because then you have a broader understanding also about different areas to protect, I guess. That's also the beauty about the job. I mean, it doesn't really matter in what kind of area you are. At the end, you have to protect data. But obviously some have other, how can I say, crown jewels. Now I'm also working for Cryptix, who's also dealing with obviously cryptocurrency, Web3.
Yeah, perhaps more information about Cryptix. What kind of projects are you working on? What kind of services do you provide?
Well, I always call it like the modern bank account. So you can obviously always see it from different angles, from a customer view, but obviously also from a B2B view. So basically, we provide also, let's say, wallet solutions. As I said, obviously for the end customer, who can be anybody who wants to use also digital currency for their day-to-day life. I mean, not just talking about investing in Bitcoin and then that's it, but obviously also to do other stuff. I will just come to it later. But then also on the other hand, for customers, let's say also for smaller ones like hairdresser or bakeries who normally are not that into tech, especially not in your tech. So we also provide them a wallet solution, and then obviously they can the end customer and obviously also the company can obviously already exchange currency in a digital way, and with their, how can I say, also kind of old world service, and obviously our fees are way lower than credit cards, because obviously we really want to build a whole kind of ecosystem around it. So basically for the end customer, they then can use like Google Maps. They can see where they can actually shop with that digital currency. We are actually using our own. And for the company itself, they can obviously also put in some ads, like NFTs or in art, or obviously also in real estate, which is a nice thing because we also have a real estate license, or a venture of us. And so basically, if the customer also wants to invest, let's say just 100 euros, it will be quite difficult nowadays to do that. But with our solution, we can do that, and he will then just get his share back in terms of what he actually invested. So, but it's possible, and I think that's really the way where we have to go. So basically, they can as I said, the modern bank account, where we can also offer modern services, and people don't have just to just bring their cash to store it somewhere, but then they can reuse it in a digital way. So it should also obviously be safe.
It's quite interesting. So you mentioned like a modern bank account with crypto, and you mentioned investment, and you mentioned even real estate investment. And I'm curious, as a chief information and security officer, what are your main challenges with respect to the infrastructure, with respect to your clients? Can you elaborate a little bit about your day-to-day? What are the challenges and how are you tackling them?
Well, I would say, I mean, next to the stuff which is, I would already call it basic housekeeping. If you don't do that, well, your security infrastructure is not very well set up. So that's already basics. I mean, where I also consider like vulnerability checks, penetration tests, also user awareness, that kind of stuff. That obviously has to be done on a regular basis. But next to that, especially in our environment, obviously we also somehow also have to educate our customers, because I mean, at the end of the day, even if they will provide or show somewhere their private key, obviously that would be the worst case, but they will always come back somehow to us, and I guess also will let us know that somehow it would have also been nice from our side to protect them better, even if we really try obviously to tell them that this specific key or key phrase should definitely never leave their head in best case, or at least their environment. So that's another thing we have to do, and especially as well, as I always call it, kind of a digital brand protection, basically. Which, I mean, we know that there are fake posts on all kinds of social media, starting with Facebook or Instagram. So basically, you have to have something running in the background who's permanently checking if there are any fake posts, because that is also critical, especially those days like Black Friday, Cyber Monday, where there are hundreds of different kinds of offers, which some of them obviously are legit, some are not. And then obviously you have to act very quickly. You have to bring down those kind of posts. Obviously, you have to check the posts if they're fake or not, and if not, you have very quickly to bring down those posts. I mean, that's mainly because, as I said, otherwise they will. I mean, it's just kind of a phishing. They try to get you, but what will happen from there? They will actually relink you to a fake website. That's the next thing. Obviously, they can one-to-one take over your, or recreate basically your proper website. And if you don't check the URL, really in a good way, especially with smaller devices like mobile phones, I guess some of us are doing that, are checking that. They will be easy prey to fall in that kind of phishing, and obviously the website looks identical. You will log in, and then obviously they already have your credentials. Yeah, and from there it's easy trick to actually just to basically draw your full the wallet, and yeah, and then obviously they will come back to us. So basically, coming back to that, we really also have to educate our customers, telling them what are the problems that can happen, and obviously we are also trying very hard to take those posts and website down as quickly as we can. Sometimes it works.
How can you as a company take down posts?
Well,
So
as I said, either you have a huge how can I say, army in the background with people, and also with a tool which you dealt with yourself, or you set it up yourself, who can actually do that. I would advise, especially for smaller companies as well, to use professionals. There are a couple out of there which are doing great jobs, and obviously they have a nice tool, as I said, who is running 24/7 and checking. And on the other hand, they're already very well known also to the legal team, abuse team on the main websites.
so how you as a company can counter, or rather prevent such posts? Can you take them down yourselves? Or also, how are you even tracking them? Are you working with any monitoring solution that is tracking those posts and checking the interaction between your users and wallets or websites that were posted on those specific posts?
Well, we started by ourselves, but then quickly we saw that the number is nearly you can't handle it. quite easy. Well, that was actually the main thing. So after that, we quickly also worked together with a provider. There are several out there, and the good thing about them, they're already very well. They have a good network, obviously, also with the bigger abuse and legal departments. So they will be way faster than if you have to do it anyhow by yourself. And as you said, the hard part is actually to track also the status, to go back and re-ask them and so on, and obviously also to track the fake website posts. So luckily with those kinds of solutions, you have everything on one dashboard. I mean, you can also bring in your, obviously we're also tracking by ourselves. So even if you found something which they don't find, which also obviously happens from time to time, we can manually add them as an incident, and then they can also do the job for us. So I think at the end of the day, still a combination. You shouldn't rely completely on them, but it's definitely a big help, and they will be faster than you, and you will have a nice kind of overview. Otherwise, you have to build everything by yourself.
Yeah, that's very interesting. It's funny because we at CyVers, we do that for our clients, but from the on-chain point of view, right? So take, for instance, fake websites and phishing websites. So we can see it from the on-chain part where, a certain wallet interacts with a fake website that can, appear to be like, let's say, Uniswap or I don't know, any other DeFi platform, and eventually we're tracking that from the on-chain side of things. But it's very interesting your point of view from the more web 2 side of things, when you see that the origin of this fake publication on social media and so on.
Exactly, but so that's, well, I mean, the original question you were asking was what kind of different kind of attacks or what we have to protect by ourselves. Obviously, that was one of it. So that's definitely one thing you have to track. But again, coming back, we really have also to make our clients more aware. I mean, it's nice to have obviously a wallet, but there are still some also some limitation. On the other hand, also some security measures which has to be done by themselves. I mean, we can do a lot. I mean, we can build the greatest thing, but if they don't use it correctly or are very, how can I say, use it reluctantly, then obviously it's also a little bit out of our hands. And on some hand, I mean, it's similar like your old-fashioned wallet. I mean, you don't give it to anybody normally. It's just for your use, and then you pay, and then you place it back in your pocket or wherever in your bag. Then obviously the other hand, obviously with everything, I guess, which has basically to run 24/7, like obviously a wallet solution. If the counterpart or if the solution is not working, then people will write also bad stuff about your solution, and obviously that. So you see, on the other hand, you obviously have to basically provide availability 99.9%, which has to be working. But obviously there we're not the only ones. Good thing is also the wallet is also quite well known also from any kind of mobile device, how can I say, user. That obviously helps.
Yeah, you mentioned the reputational part of scams and hacks, which is obviously very important, and that's something that companies should keep in mind. And kudos for you for thinking about that and being so proactive with your clients. But I wanted to ask you, so you mentioned quite a few activities that you are doing, and you are a Swiss-based company, if I'm not wrong. You are regulated by FINMA.
Not really, because we don't have a banking license in Switzerland. We have one actually in Luxembourg. Because we also provide, as you just said, it's modern bank account. But that's, again, it really depends on where our venture is actually located. We have one in Luxembourg. So we're not regulated by the FINMA, but we are regulated obviously in Luxembourg.
And the reason that I'm asking, because I'm curious, from the regulator standpoint, what kind of obligations do you have, or rather requirements in terms of security? What type of security measures do you have to implement to maintain your license and to be compliant?
Well, there are several. I would start also with the, what can I say, data protection, if I may, as I'm also the DPO. So GDPR obviously is basically the standard, which has to obviously also to be fulfilled, because we're also very much involved obviously with the data protector in Luxembourg, which is also working very well. So that's basically it in terms of relation from Luxembourg. Well, they obviously all have some banking internal, I'm going to say, regulations, which is well, I mean, if you're already, how can I say, following a kind of a framework like we do, obviously ISO 27001, then basically you definitely have the standard baseline. Then obviously you have to add some specific ones in terms of bank secrecy. But nevertheless, I would say, I mean, if you have that, then you're already quite well. Well, your setup is already quite high in terms also of, for a Web3 company or venture, I would say. Yeah, and then obviously there are more things coming up with like Mika, Dora, which obviously also have to be in your back of your mind, and NIS2 as well. So yeah, so that's why I always say, well, you have to obviously you have to read all those kind of framework, check what is obviously what you have to implement for yourself, but then also decide which ones actually is the best to fit basically like a baseline layer. Obviously, we decided to go for ISO 27001. And then obviously but don't forget the others as well. I mean, some are very specific, but add them, and yeah, so that you are just compliant with all that kind of regulation. Because at the end of the day, if one compliance officer or one regulatory is coming to you and you miss one which you should have had, that obviously it's not the way to go forward. But on the other hand, the good thing is with also cloud providers, you can with a lot of them you can actually upload a lot of frameworks. And then obviously from a technical point of view, you can they already provide you all their kind of standard, what they're running, which I think is nice, and you can have it in real time. So let's say if you're running things on Microsoft Azure or in the Microsoft Cloud, and they will provide you from the Microsoft side the whole bunch what they're doing and what is today actually what they're, and even with the scoring. What they do in terms of to fulfill the ISO 27001, and so basically on your side, then you have obviously to check all the organizational stuff, internal, and obviously everything which is activated. But I think it's already a good starting point and helps a lot. If I imagine back to my time where you had to check what is actually first of all on-prem. Well, I mean, what kind of system, what kind of releases are you using? I mean, it took days to actually just get also all the involved people to get that running, and then obviously you had to get some evidence, and here you have it on your fingertip. I mean, you can just enter, and you see already what technically is running, and yeah. So these things are, I'm just saying these are also getting better because unfortunately those frameworks are getting more and more, and obviously we I'm sure as you know as well, Web3 was a lot of things were unregulated. That's why also a lot of business developed quickly. Unfortunately, a lot of some things also went sideways. If we think back at the crypto winter, FTX, that kind of stuff. Obviously, with more how can I say, compliance and regulation, it wouldn't have happened. But on the other hand, the whole service wouldn't have be launched that quickly as well. So on the one hand, it means you can move quite quickly. On the other hand, you should still also use, as I said, some baselines, even if you don't go for certification, because at the end of the day, it's you will be safe. And I think it's also wise to predict before and also use what you obviously you can use. As I said, I mean, with cloud solutions, normally these services are not that expensive. Then just try to get a higher license if you have to. Maybe it's already included, and then I obviously also use these tools, and then you can also show it to your regulator.
Yeah, now with Micah and Dora kicking in, and that's in Europe per se, right? But judging from some regulation in the UK, for instance, with the FCA app fraud regulation recently, so much more burden is falling on the shoulders of chief security officers and chief compliance officers, and eventually you cannot escape it. You need to certain measures, as you mentioned, some baseline measures to be compliant. But beyond that, you also mentioned certifications, right? So if you want to be certified, And if you want to eventually be eligible to play, the big game, then those measures need to be even more extensive and more robust.
Exactly. Well, I mean, it's at the end of the day. Normally, it's a budget thing. I mean, either you're willing also to invest in that kind of stuff or not. For me personally, it's always if you have to think in a couple of years terms. I mean, and also obviously with who are your customers? I mean, if you're facing a lot of things outside and you're also using a lot of cloud solutions, as I said, I think it's really nice to have a kind of also to show that you're investing in that kind of area. So yeah, so I always recommend to go for certification. But nevertheless, I mean, the good thing is also there's also some movement in terms of certification for crypto systems. So there's the C4 consortium, cryptocurrency security standard, where you can actually certify a system basically, so that things are obviously going correctly. And there are also a couple of white paper out there which you can always read. I mean, I mentioned FTX, and there's actually a nice one where they actually looked at if FTX would have had that certification, a lot of things wouldn't have happened. So I can obviously recommend that if you want to. It's available on LinkedIn. But next to the so basically, what I want to say is that these things obviously are good, and I also saw on a more in the Asia Pacific area kind of a exchange rating website where they were actually rating crypto exchanges. And if you wanted to have the full security kind of maximum points, you also needed this C4 standard, which I think is great because also motivating then exchanges actually also to get that. But what I wanted to say is, I mean, I guess also as a user, if you know that the system is certified and that some specific controls are actually in place, well, I would prefer that to anyone who's not using that. So they obviously also have to promote it and then make it visible. So I think that's going into the right direction. But again, I mean, this is always the question: do I need it, and then how much does it cost? And I mean, as we know, a lot of startups obviously they have just to go full speed with their service, and those things. Well, yeah, I mean, you look at it and then see, yeah, it's too expensive, and then you normally forget about it, which is unfortunately a pity. But yeah, but as I said, but the good thing is, as I also want to mention, is things are getting cheaper. That's on the good thing. I mean, these standards are getting cheaper, are more well known. Obviously, with the same we had with the cloud in the beginning, it was also quite expensive. Nowadays, you can really, with a couple of clicks, you can just add some more capacity, whatever, CPU power, storage, and yeah, hopefully also security.
Yeah, so you mentioned, do I need it and how much does it cost? So it's a very good segue to what I wanted to ask you. So you were recently awarded the Top Global CISO Award by the Cyber Defense magazine. So first of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
And I wanted to read what the judges mentioned as they were searching for, the top contenders. So they mentioned that they were looking for the most innovative with unparalleled success in communicating with their boards and senior level executives. So I'd like to ask you exactly about that, that part about communicating with the board and the company leadership and other stakeholders. A CISO, sometimes they're seen as someone who's hampering the business of the company, right? Because as a CEO or as a board member, you're thinking about the profit of the company, and you're thinking about how to increase sales and how to boost marketing to increase sales. Security is not the first thing that is on your mind. And then add to that the fact that security, as you said, is also costly. Even if the prices have dropped, at the end of the day, it's not a cheap thing, and sometimes you have to perhaps stall your advancement on the roadmap and things of that sort. So I wanted to ask you, how are you bridging the gap here? How are you managing this tension between what the board and what the management wants and what the system needs in terms of security?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, how can I say? I was always, or I always call it like you have to speak to different kind of languages, and I'm not in terms of in obviously in the real language, but in terms of on which level you have to talk. I mean, if you talk to IT operations, then if you talk to department heads, and obviously also to the board, it's always different because obviously their outcome or what they're interested is can be the same, but you have to say it in a different way. And I mean, coming back to that, I mean, yeah, in the couple of years back, I mean, definitely the technical, I can say, task was way or not in their view, so to say. So basically, IT was just the thing that should work as well as IT security. Nowadays, luckily, on the one hand, it also swapped over in your basically personal life. I mean, this as I said, this mobile device, you have it everywhere. And so the good thing is obviously you should also have some security features there, or also some security knowledge, which makes, how can I say, things at least a little bit better, because I'm sure everybody of us was involved in a breach. So I mean, and we're talking about bigger companies. I mean, like LinkedIn was breached, and so on. I mean, so basically, also companies where you think, well, they should, well, they should be good, or their security team should be definitely good enough. But anyhow, as we know from the security space, every system which is connected to the internet is just a target. So even if you have the best kind of team around it. But coming back to your question, so basically, yes, you have to come to a kind of a common ground. You obviously have to show them what is basically also the worst case for them. With the example, you have to show have really to have an impact in their life. So as I said, you don't have to talk about a specific incident, I guess, only if it's really a big one. But I mean, so they're not interested in how many they are. They're more interested, how do you tackle it, and how could it affect them or the reputation of the company. And yeah, so that should always be in the back of your mind. I will also try to talk to each board member with themselves, so build a kind of a relationship. Also, as I always call it, build a kind of circle of trust. That always helps. And then if you also understand their viewpoint, it's always easier, as I said, to bring it down to their needs. And I think that's definitely one thing I can recommend. So if you don't try to, I don't know, as I said, just to talk about your budget and to try to get it through, you obviously also have to show them what can happen if they don't invest. But you don't even have to be that specific. Yeah, and then normally you have completely different kind of discussions with them, because then okay, they see it, and then the budget obviously is still something you have to discuss, but it's easier for you also with your argumentation to discuss about it, because they see okay, this is a direct impact if we do nothing. And then obviously also to show them, if we do nothing, we stay here. If we don't invest at all, we will actually go lower. If we invest, we will actually go further up. And then obviously also the risk, we will automatically also mitigate the risk. I mean, as I said, there will be never a zero kind of, we will never be not a target, but at least we will be out. It will be way harder to also attack us and be successful instead that if we do nothing. And obviously then come up with a couple of things which already happened. Also talk about trends, and yeah, even if there are even peers who undergo specific kind of threats and even breaches, even better, and show that to them. And then I think that's, if you're building this credibility and trust with your board, it's really a good thing to have.
Yeah, and you mentioned looking at this from an ROI perspective. At the end of the day, you have to invest a little bit in security, but that will help you grow and that will prevent you from falling, right? So
Exactly.
the ROI here is quite clear, and I think it's a very good point. But I would like to shift. So we talked about Cryptix. I would like to talk about your other role as the chairman of the supervisory board of eSync. And I wanted to dive into the question of layer one blockchain security. So how do you keep a blockchain secured? And even more important, how do you keep the projects that are built on top of this blockchain secured? So it's a whole ecosystem, right? So you have the blockchain itself, its core infrastructure, and you have the native token of the blockchain, and you have the projects that are built on top of that. That sounds like a major headache in terms of security.
Well, yeah, well, how can I say? I mean, yes and no, but well, obviously, but on the one hand, obviously, we have already also good kind of developers, I would say, and things which are, well, and we're a very stable team as well. I mean, basically, most of them are still there who actually also started the whole project. So I think that also helps. And then obviously you also, well, how can I say, you have to, how can I say, I mean, as any other service, I would say to improve it, enhance it, and also make it more secure. So basically, um, well, as you just say, I mean, well, also if you start with a layer one, obviously you also use more into a layer two, because things will definitely also come to an end, or if, also in terms of from the can I say, well, obviously there are some limitations with so the scalability issues. For one thing, so basically interoperability gaps as well. So these are things which obviously, well, if once you grow, are definitely could be your enemy at one point. So basically, you definitely also have to go towards L2 or layer 2 solution to obviously increase the scalability and speed. In long terms, it will also be a cost reduction. Definitely also enhance user experience, definitely, and you will also be more flexible. So that's also one thing. But I mean, they also, they also check, other kinds of, how can I say, either chains which are out there, and on the other hand, obviously also what the other projects are doing, which is also nice. So you can, I guess, also get a couple of good hints by them. But well, I mean, there will also be a lot of challenges for sure. But yeah, from my point of view, you definitely have to increase from time to time. We're coming back to your question, so yeah, but you also, as I said, you should never also forget about security. So I think, but yeah, I mean, that's also a whole process. You obviously have to also invest in your development software development team. Also bring in security by design, I would say. It's always easier, so you don't forget it from start, and that are just people just getting kind of their normal. So I think that's also a good thing, which I
Yeah.
can which I can definitely recommend. Yeah. So and obviously you also have to have a kind of a bigger vision, I would say. So you also have to see a little bit of the future. I mean, I know sometimes you don't know how quickly technology can go, but yeah. So for the other hand, you just have to assume that things are increasing, and also in terms of size, also from your users.
Yeah, so I totally agree with that. We're working with quite a few blockchains, L1s and L2s, where we're protecting their core smart contracts, their treasury wallets, their basically the infrastructure of the blockchains. And yeah, definitely, I see that you need to have good developers, but also, in my humble point of view, you need to have real time monitoring to make sure that nobody takes advantage of the vulnerabilities, and that eventually, when there's a will, there's a way, right? The hackers will
True.
find a way eventually to infiltrate, and thus you need to have real-time monitoring both for the smart contracts and for the wallets.
Exactly. No, I agree.
Great. So before we wrap up, do you have any last thoughts, any advices that you want to give either to leaders in the industry or maybe to younger CISOs that perhaps are not that experienced about what they need to do? What should they implement to have a more secure environment in their company?
Well, I mean, what to implement? I mean, if I had really the holy grail, I think I would write the book, and then and then it would be good. So I mean, unfortunately, there's no solution which you can just top down and that's done. But I mean, we're talking about certification, so I mean, look maybe into that. I would definitely recommend, or if you don't go for certification, at least try to follow a certain standard framework. I can highly recommend that. That's already a good thing to do. On the other hand, I mean, as we know, there's no ending of your, how can I say, learning. So keep on learn and look for what's out there, and maybe you can also use it for your solution. So that's also definitely also a recommendation. And as I said, for solutions, I mean, normally you're not the only one creating something. So well, get to know you or broaden your network, get to know your peers, and I mean, take out whatever is fitting for you. So I think that these kinds of combinations are already quite good to go forward. And yeah, they will always work, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's definitely a good advice. So Alexander, thank you so much for this illuminated talk. I think we covered so many grounds, and I really wish I had more time to talk to you about that. Some great advice, if I may say, for again security leaders and in general leaders in the Web3 space. So thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
Sure. Thank you, Michael. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Web3 Watchdogs is sponsored by CyVers, your one-stop shop for Web3 security and threat mitigation. CyVers harnesses the power of AI to eliminate hacks, scams, fraud, and compliance challenges in real time, and even before they happen. For more information, visit cyvers.ai. That's CYVERS.ai.